We're going to go over how to replace the Spectra cord on your Elevate brace. This isn't something you'll have to do very often, but after a year to 18 months of wear, you might want to replace the cord if it's starting to fray a little. So following the instructions that come with your replacing the Spectra cord kit, we're going to go through step by step. So step one, we're going to remove the dial. Now your kit came with the BOA screwdriver. This BOA screwdriver is the same as a Torx T5, which you might have in your toolbox. So our BOA dial that's on the front of the brace, we're going to put that screwdriver straight into the O and loosen that up. So I've unscrewed the dial. Now I see my spool, I can just pop that right out. I like to use a screwdriver. Step two, we're going to remove the cord. So to do so, I'm just going to unwind this and cut this cord off. I like to use just a razor blade. You can use an X-Acto knife, anything that's sharper than scissors. So maybe even really sharp embroidery scissors if you sew might work, but just standard scissors probably won't. So now I'm going to remove that cord from the spool. Now I can just go throw my old Spectra cord away. Step three, we're going to thread a new cord. Now this might be one of the most difficult parts. I have my new cord, I'm going to thread it through the brace. It's really important to keep in mind where you're going to thread it. So we're going to go through the bottom, each side, and then into the center, and then through the spool. So now after I threaded it through the 3 loops, I threaded it into the center where your spool goes. Now I'm going to thread these 2 ends into my spool and tie off the ends. If you look there on your spool, it has a little bit of a guide to help you guide that thread right through. Now we're going to tie off the 2 ends. Step 4 is to tie the cord off against the spool. So you want to tie off the 2 ends as close to the end of the cord as possible. If we have any bit of a little tail or whatever you want to call it there at the end, we actually want to trim that off with our razor blade or X-Acto knife, whatever we used, because we want to make sure there is no tail after our knot. If there's any extra cord that actually can get into the function of the brace and cause it to catch and not work as properly as it should. So we want to tie our knot off as close to the end as possible, and any little extra, like we have a little extra right there, I'm just going to cut off. After we've taken in tied our knots off as close to the end as possible, we'll just pull them tight against that spool and then just thread our cord. Now we're just going to take our cord, thread it back through, and insert that spool into the center. And I like to just do it with all of the cord out, not any cord on the inside, just so we make sure that it wraps around that spool properly. Now step 5, we're going to install the BOA dial back onto the brace. So I'm going to take my dial, put it back there in the center, and my screwdriver again, and tighten that up. Now we're going to do the brace just barely as tight as it can go. So now the brace is tight, I'm going to do a little quarter turn backwards because I want to make sure that this BOA dial is perfectly on there. So I'm going to test it. It wiggles just a little, so I'm going to tighten second up. All right, so now I think that's pretty good. So I'm going to tighten that Spectra cord. Step 6, the last step is to test the brace. You really want to test your cord to make sure that you've done it properly before you actually put your brace on. So I'm going to take and pull it a couple times just to make sure that that cord is working properly. Now it seems to pull a little bit tight, so maybe I tighten just a hair too much. So now it seems that the Spectra cord is pulling. There's no tangles, there's nothing wrong with it. So I'm ready to put it on and go.